An economic model is a simplified representation of real-world economic phenomena used to analyze, understand, and predict economic behavior. These models typically involve assumptions, variables, and relationships between those variables, allowing economists to study complex economic systems in a more manageable and structured way. Here is a breakdown of the components of an economic model: assumptions, variables, relationships, predictions, and analysis. Let's go one by one. Assumptions. Economic models begin with assumptions about the behavior of individuals, firms, markets, or the economy as a whole. These assumptions help simplify the real world by focusing on the most relevant factors for the analysis. Variables. Economic models include variables which are measurable quantities that can change over time. These variables in economic concepts such as price, quantity, income, demand, supply, and so on. Relationships. Economic models establish relationships between variables. These relationships are typically expressed through mathematical equations, graphs, or diagrams. They describe how changes in one variable affect another variable, capturing cause and effect relationships or patterns observed in the data. Predictions and analysis. By simulating the interactions between variables based on the model's assumptions and relationships, economists can make predictions about future economic outcomes or analyze the effects of policy interventions, technological changes, or other factors on the economy. Here is an example of an economic model: the supply and demand model. One of the most fundamental economic models is the supply and demand model, which analyzes the interaction between buyers, that demand, and sellers, that is supply, in a market. Assumptions: perfect competition, many buyers and sellers with no single entity having significant market power. Rational behavior, buyers and sellers act in their self-interest to maximize utility or profit. Ceteris paribus, all of the factors remain constant except the variables being analyzed. Variables: price, quantity, demand, and supply. Price: the amount of money buyers are willing to pay and sellers are willing to accept for a good or service. Quantity is the amount of the good or service exchanged in the market. Demand is the quantity of a good or service that buyers are willing and able to purchase at different prices. And supply is the quantity of a good or service that sellers are willing and able to produce and sell at different prices. Relationships. Law of demand. There is an inverse relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded. Ceteris paribus. Law of supply. There is a direct relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied. Ceteris paribus. Equilibrium. The price and quantity at which demand equals supply, resulting in a stable market price. Predictions and analysis. The model can predict how changes in factors such as consumer preferences, input costs, or government policies will affect market outcomes, such as prices and quantities exchanged. It can also be used to analyze the effects of price controls, taxes, or other interventions on market efficiency and welfare. Overall, the supply and demand model provides a framework for understanding how markets allocate resources and determine prices in response to changes in supply and demand conditions.